Good morning to you, everyone. I trust you're all in good shape and raring to go for Pesach. And so just a quick thought, because I know it's a very busy day for many. One of the key parts of the Haggadah is the statement by Rabban Gamliel that comes quite late on in the Haggadah, that anyone who has not mentioned these three elements has not fulfilled their obligation to speak about the Exodus from Egypt. And what are they? They are Pesach, Matzah, and Maror. One has to speak about the Pesach offering, one has to speak about Matzah, and one has to speak about the bitter times as well. And he gives an explanation for each one of them in the very familiar way that Matzah is because the people didn't have a chance to, the bread didn't have a chance to rise, etc. Just shortly before this, there's another statement that a person is obligated to see themselves as if they had personally gone out from Egypt. Well, then that means that when one reads about these three items, one has to find some personal relevance in them. One has to see them not just as historical events, but in some way that will make a difference to our own lives and see ourselves as if we're going out of Egypt, meaning to say, as I tried to explain the other night in the Shabbat HaGadol class, the going out of Egypt in spiritual terms is the way in which a Jew is able to grow spiritually and to develop. So what are these three things? What symbolism do we see in the Pesach, Matzah, and Maror that helps us to grow as Jews? Well, I think the idea of the Pesach is the idea of defiance. This is a people, of course, the sheep was the god of the Egyptians, the Israelites who were enslaved, of course, and not in no position to be able to show any kind of disobedience to their host culture, were prepared, instructed, and were able to take the god of their hosts and to display it outside their houses for 5 days in an extraordinary defiance of the values of their host culture, and the worship of the sheep and fertility, the sun worship, etc., and to declare their separateness, etc. So that's the first way in which a person actually grows as a Jew. There's something which is counter swimming against the stream, going against being prepared to stand up against the values that surround us, being able to take our own values and to be unashamed to display them openly. That is the concept of the Korban Pesach. The concept of matzah is that, matzah, as you know, represents humility. It's not something which we as Jews have been very well known for. Sometimes we become a little bit arrogant in our achievements, and even when we want to show ourselves to be different, sometimes this leads to a sense not just of difference, but a sense of superiority as well. Superiority against the Gentile culture around us. You know, we're different to them, and that, God forbid, is not something which a Jew should this should not be the result of our difference. A degree of acknowledgement and humility that whatever we have is God-given and not of our own making. Matzah reminds us that there's a certain degree of quietness and humility that one has to show in society around us, and not to be boastful of who we are and of our achievements, which we are prone to do in reality, both here and in Israel. Don't we always trumpet every time Israel has produced something? We want to show the world, look what we can do, etc. This small Jewish nation, we've trumped everyone, etc. Well, that's not necessarily the best way to go about things. And what about the maror? Well, the maror is that we should realize sometimes that wanting to be different leads to difficulties. It's not always easily accepted by society. Society would prefer us to be the same, although even so, they won't accept us when they're the same. But nevertheless, they want to pick out our differences, and that can sometimes lead to a lot of difficulty. The maror is there to remind us that from the bitterness, there's also growth as well, that we have to go through bitter times as a Jewish nation. We can't forget the past, and we acknowledge that there will always be a dimension of bitterness. It's something which is built into the fabric of our very complex faith. But with the idea of being able to stand up against society, its values, and to do it with humility, and to recognize that the difficulties that we've faced as a result of that or for other reasons are things from which we can grow as well. Those are the three elements of Rabban Gamliel's key points of the Seder, which help us to be able to make the concept of Yetziat Mitzrayim real for us and tangible in our lives as well. Wish you all Pesach Kasher V'Sameach, and look forward to seeing you all in Shul over Yom Tov and in the weeks after as well. All the best. And good Shabbos as well.